views and opinions expressed by the following program are those of the host, guests, and callers and are not necessarily those of this station or Webster Rock Hill Ministries, its management, or other hosts or underwriting sponsors. Programs presented on KWRH-LP are for educational and entertainment purposes only. Views which are presented are for educational purposes only and are not intended to treat, diagnose, or claim any cure of disease or condition.
Hello, family. This is Greg and Robin with another edition of Family Matters. You're listening to KWRH LP 92.9 FM, your community radio station in Webster Groves, Missouri, 63119. Well, family, we're glad to be back this week. However, we're going to talk about, we have a guest in the studio.
Yes.
And this young lady is pretty dynamic from all indications. She is an author. She's a mother. She is a wife. She has Christian values. And most importantly, she really endorses what the family structure presently should be from a perspective of Christ. However, but what we're going to talk about today is she has authored 2 books. Her name is April Floyd, and she is from St. Louis, Missouri, and she is presently doing a book tour in St. Louis at this present time. And before we get into the meat and bones of what her book's about, I just want to let her more or less talk about things from an introductory phase. We want to, and she can also talk to us about her books, as well as we have some questions in regards to how she arrived at these books and all the things from that present nature. But before I introduce her, Robin, is there anything that you have that you would like to say to the family today?
Hello, family. This is Greg and Robin with Families United, and we're all about promoting healthy relationship. Today we have a special guest, and I am so excited. We have April Floyd, who has written 2 dynamic books, and we're just delighted to have her as our guest. And we have several questions for her, but it's all about family. It's all about healthy family and promoting healthy families. So as we get started, listen, audience, just pay attention to some details of what we're talking about, because we can be an inspiration to you and your family.
Absolutely. Without further ado, Miss April Floyd, you have the floor.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me.
All right. Now, presently, the 2 books that you have authored, one is called Unique, and the other is called, is it The Link or Link?
The link.
The Link, okay.
Okay.
And on the first book, Unique, primarily is about a young lady who has, some physical and psychological disabilities, however. But, I'm going to let you more or less give our audience a narrative about it. It looks as if she has these issues, but she overcame. So you have the floor.
Okay. Well, Unique was my first novel that I've written. And it's been running 5 stars since 2014. It's about a young lady, a little girl actually, and she has mental and physical disabilities. She's born to a mother in a family who's cruel. Her mother's suffering with drug addiction. She supports that habit through prostitution. She has lots of siblings. They're mean and cruel to her, and they make fun of her physical disability. So this child goes through a lot, from hunger, from loneliness, from a lot of things. She But what makes her unique is her ability to see the light in everyone. And she never gives up. And and she has these piercing, beautiful eyes that cause people to listen to her, even when she's speaking. But she's such an extraordinary little girl. Even though she's going through all these terrible things, she managed to change the lives of her entire family, both her biological and non-biological family. She was adopted. She experienced a tragedy, and in that tragedy, she made a promise to her sister that died in her arms. That promise that she made changed the lives of everyone. And so it's really a unique and inspirational story, and it's built around the authentic truths in life, things that sometimes people don't want to admit or talk about.
Yes, listening audience, if you hear April speak about her book, remember, young people, do not judge others. We all are made differently. God made us differently. So remember to treat each other fairly, treat each other with respect, and always love each other. Love your neighbor, love your sister, your brother, your father. We want to have healthy relationship in our families. And it's so important as sisters and brothers and cousins or whoever is in your family that you treat each other correctly, you treat each other fairly, you love each other is just so important. So, April, I have a question for you. What inspired you to write this book?
Actually, I have a lot of things that gave me my inspiration for writing Unique. One is having children, and I saw that they were struggling, experiencing that. I also driven a school bus
Okay.
for 17 years of my career. And in that, I was able to see the struggles of the parents with children who were disabled. So seeing things and experiencing things in my walk of life, I've been able to, and I also was a CNA at one point. So I was able to, all these things that my careers and life has shown me, moved me to write this book. And it is a very, very powerful story.
Well, that's interesting. In reference to, you mentioned how, as a school bus driver, you see the difficulties of the parents having problems. We've had a previous guest, and his name was Dennis Buckley, and he has a home health care business. And he talked about on how the families have difficulties when their loved ones have disabilities. And that's so interesting because his story contrasts a little with what your book kind of highlights. But the interesting thing about the character, the young lady in the book, Unique, despite of all of the physical problems that she has, she still perseveres and she presses on and she goes forward. And that's what's interesting, or one of the things that kind of caught my eye. In writing the book, was there, what would you say primarily point that you would want highlighted to various, to the family structure, to especially to mothers, fathers, and families who have, going through personal problems, whether it be, psychological, whether it be money, whether it be, physical, these things in which what the character, the young lady, has in the book.
Okay, well, there's a quote by one of the characters by the name of Al.
Okay.
He's the father, the biological father of Unique, and he has this quote, and that's followed from the beginning of the book all the way through it and until the end. And the quote is, "Next to God, family is the best thing."
Next to God, family is the best thing. So you hear that, listening audience. You must put God first. Take care of yourself second, and then you can take care of your family. So if you have God first and you're taking care of yourself, you can be a better mother, a better sister, a better family lifestyle. So remember, take care of yourself, but always put God first as well.
Hello, family. This is Greg and Robin, and we're back. We're back with the second segment of Family Matters. We have a special guest in the studio. Her name is April Floyd, and she has written two books. The first book that we talked about at the top of the hour, that book is called Unique. And the second book that she has is a book primarily talking about, it's titled The Link. And from what I understand, the book is about, it shares a lot of, it has a special love for all things and related to Christmas. But I'm going to let Mrs. Floyd give us a little synopsis of what that book contains as well and how it relates to the family structure as well.
Okay. The link between is entitled "The Link Between Christ, Christmas, and Santa Claus," and what it is, it's a fantasy novel, magical realism for young adults. And this particular novel talks about a young lady who discovers that she's the apprentice, and what she's battling for is to save the reputation of Christ and Christmas and Santa Claus. She battles all kinds of from demons, witches, vampires, Loch Ness monsters, different worlds, different regions. It has Greek mythology in it, seven wonders of the world. It's a lot of the things that we hear about as myths, even mermaids, things that we hear about, but there's like no story that links all these things together with an explanation. And it gives an explanation for all these different things and in her battle, and it's all about trying to save Christmas and Santa Claus.
So it's more of a fantasy book.
It's a fantasy novel
Oh,
for young adults.
Yes, that is wonderful.
It's like I always say, a Harry Potter, but fighting for the good side, fighting God.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
as long as it's fantasy, but as long as it's showing a message of overcoming from a spiritual perspective, I think that has a positive insight on our young people, because we constantly need to continuously berate our young people with overcoming things throughout Christ.
But what makes this special regarding family, this young lady lost her mother at a young age, and she had a grandmother that she called Grandmama. And at a point in turn in her life, Grandmama had gotten older, and where she had to do the taking care of Grandmama, and they were the only ones in their physical world. So we today know that things in reverse happens. The children are taken care of, and next thing you know, they have to take care of either their parents or their grandmothers or things like that. So it's also related to family, taking care of each other when it comes to family life.
And that's one of the primary dynamics that we try to convey every week when we come into the studio, as well as our events, our lectures, our workshops, our retreats, our fundraisers, is that we promote self-sufficiency, irregardless whether you're a maturing family, but also as the young people, because the young people have to carry on the legacy. And it's unfortunate that in the two books that you have authored, they talk about overcoming. They talk about being self-sufficient, but they talk about it from a spiritual perspective, because at the end of the day, that's what the number one priority is. But question, so and not that we're taken away from this, what inspired you to be an author?
I've always loved writing. I went to Knifer Middle School. My reading teacher, Mrs. Johns, I would never forget her because she was the first one that actually mentioned to me. She was like, "You're a writer." That was the first time I've done an essay. I had gotten an A+ on it, and the creativity in that. She told me, "You are a writer." And that was the first time I've heard that at that age. I didn't pursue it. I did it as a hobby. I didn't pursue it as something that I would make money off of or a career. It was just a hobby. So I had, we had those box computers with a little floppy disk at the time.
Right.
And you remember those.
Back in the day.
And I used to write little children's stories and all kinds of little creative things. And I just left it there. But there's this one novel I wrote. It was called The Look of Love. And I vow to go back to the Look of Love because I lost that book. Well, I can't go back to it now. I'll tell you why. But a storm hit my house and my computer was plugged in and it fried it.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
wow.
So I called these persons, called the Geek Squad out, and they took the computer away, and I lost everything. But anyway, that's when I stopped writing. I stopped writing for a time because I was engulfed in it. I was just constantly writing, and it wasn't something. It was a hobby for me. So when I met my husband, Eddie Floyd Jr., he was telling me about a story. And I said, and I was finishing up his story and getting involved in his story. And he looked at me, he said, "You're a writer?" I said, "Yeah, I did at one point." He said, "No, it's time to get back started." And he was the one that inspired me, besides my situations that I've known about, but he inspired me to write again, to start back up. And he was like, "Well, we're going to make sure your data is safe this time." So we went to the store and bought all these different things. And that's how Unique actually was born, because of Eddie Floyd Jr.
Wow, interesting.
That is really interesting from a perspective of the two books, however, that you wrote. Each character had to overcome. But you've just given us an example of how you had to overcome as well.
Yes, yes.
And it is a good message that you're conveying from a fictional standpoint, as well as your own personal testimony standpoint to the family, to our listening audience, that even though sometimes things happen, which they do happen, but you still have to have faith and to have the ability and to have the willpower to continue on, because being a writer is a gift from Christ.
Yes, it is.
This is definitely a gift, because a lot of people don't have the skills. And not only to have the skills to be a writer, but to have the creative imagination as well. So it really is a tremendous talent to have. Also, give our listening audience, if they want to contact you, because I want you to get it in before this segment ends. Give us, our listening audience, a contact info or email or web address or anything else.
Well, my web address is aprilfloydbooks.com. You can read all about me. You can Google me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and all of those other little Twitters and thingies.
Right.
They have so many that's constantly coming out.
Social
but
media.
Social media.
Social media.
You can find me on all sources of social media sites. And aprilfloydbooks.com. My books are sold at Barnes & Noble. Websites are all book websites. You can get it anywhere. Amazon is also on Kindle. Now, if you're in St. Louis, they're at 3111 South Grand Boulevard, Grand and Arsenal. So if you're in St. Louis, you can pick up the books at either of those locations. All websites, book selling websites, you can pick it up. And
Right.
Amazon Kindle.
Okay. Robin.
Wow, that's great. Listening audience, did you hear that? You can get the book at the various websites that April talked about. And, if you can just be in the studio and see April's face as she light up and talk about writing. I mean, you can tell she has the imagination and the talent that God has blessed her with. And she just her eyes light up as she talk about her books. And we're just excited to have her here today as our guest. Right, Greg?
Absolutely. And I noticed, she has a many talent too. Not only is she's a writer, she's an author, she's a novelist, she's an associate producer. And, she talks a little about in her bio, her style of writing, and it crosses, all conventional boundaries. From one genre focusing on drama, horror, suspense, spirituality, action, romance, magical realism. But, we hope that, once that she sits down and forms a relationship with Families United, that she writes some family books. Trying to get our plug in, huh? But
The best, if I may, the
Sure.
best book so far for family right now is unique.
It's
Is
unique. Okay.
Okay.
Unique is definitely family oriented. There are so many stories in this book. 1 out of 5 persons are affected by disabilities.
Yes,
true.
that
So
is
true.
true.
And also, there are people that suffer with drug addiction. There are people that suffer with bullying. Bullying is in the
Yes,
book. Unique was
yes.
bullied because of her disability. Families being torn apart for many different various reasons, but how they all came together because of one little girl had a dream of becoming a fashion designer.
And see how important that is. It's important that we live out our dreams. It's important that we have mentors. Even if we don't have mentors, you have to be a better person for yourself. This is Greg and Robin with Families United, and we're going to take a break, and we will be back shortly.
Back with the second segment of Family Matters, and we have a special guest in the studio today, and her name is April Floyd. She has authored 2 books, and the first book is Unique, and it's about a young woman who overcomes physical and psychological disabilities. And her second book is called The Link, and it talks about Christmas from a spiritual perspective to a young lady who also has overcome a lot of things as well. Well, we are excited to have you in the studio.
Yes, yes.
But
Thank you.
but we see that you are a young lady who has of many talents. But let's talk about this book tour that you're on, and of course you're presently in St. Louis right now. Can you talk about some of the previous cities that you've been in, and how have they accepted your book from a perspective of, just as a good read in reference to being motivative and or inspiring?
Well, I just left not too long ago. It was New Orleans.
Okay.
I had been there, I guess, about twice with my novel. I was shocked. There were people that knew me
Ah.
Oh,
in New
good.
Orleans, and in the hotel. I actually made a video on my social media site, and it's showing the experience of me in the hotel and people coming up.
Okay.
So that was the first time. Well, yeah, that was the second time in New Orleans that happened. But I'm always surprised that people have been ordering the book and they can recognize who I am. And Memphis, Tennessee, of course, is really great in various Chicago, Arkansas. I've been to Kentucky, the Carolinas.
Okay.
I love the Carolinas.
Wow.
I did a signing there a couple of times, and just going to every city I possibly can.
And that's interesting, because one of the things that's very important, and the reason why that question was posed, is because I'm not going to say, well, I would probably say there is a shortage of minority writers, such as yourself. And it's very important that you travel across these cities and that you show young people who have the talents that that you possibly have, but they just don't they don't see the role models, and they get stuck in reference to, well, how do I go about and show my talent? And so by you going to these cities, seeing this, and doing a book signing where they're there with their parents or siblings or family or whoever it may be, you would be surprised at how many people that you have inspired or you possibly inspired. And that's one of the reasons and it was probably even a surprise to yourself as well.
I'll tell you, one of the biggest surprises I had is to actually, and I recorded this also, and I shared it with my social media and fan base. Someone came from Alabama just recently and to meet me. So they drove from Alabama to meet me and have their book signed. because I hadn't gone to Alabama. I've been in Alabama, but I hadn't done
Okay.
anything with my novels there. So I was just surprised, just totally. And she was in a wheelchair.
Wow.
Wow. Isn't that
And she
wow,
came
inspiring?
she said that the book inspired her to write
See,
and inspired her
Wow.
to go on. I had a one guy that from St. Louis that had children with, he had two girls with disabilities, and he felt that they were a burden. But after reading my novel, he realized that they had a gift and a talent. And would you know, one of them could sing. And
Yes.
so he began to explore that talent, and he's just been so happy since being able to. He enjoy his children now.
see, family, this is why we bring guests like April Floyd in the studio, because not only are these people talented, and I want to say that again, family, not only are they talented, they're spiritually driven.
Yes.
And what more motivational factor do you need when you need someone who's spiritually driven from a Christ perspective to come in and not only inspire you to overcome your disabilities, because we all are to a degree, but it's even more gratifying when you can lay your hands, not lay your hands, but your eyes and primarily just have a conversation with people who are spiritually driven from that nature. Robin?
I just have a question for you, April. So, what is your next book?
My next book, actually, I have a lot of fans asking me for part 3 and 4 of Unique.
Part 3 and 4 of
Yeah,
Unique.
so that is on its way. This is actually part 1 and 2.
Okay.
This is a unique world and a unique life. Now, part 3 and 4 is a unique message and a unique change.
Okay, got
So
it.
those are coming out next. And I have several books. I usually write 2 or 3 at a time. So.
Okay. So, will you have the similar characters in the book? I know we need to.
Yes, it's like a soap opera, that book there. And it's one of those reads that once you pick it up, you can't put it down. And it's about the authentic truths in life. So it's written the way people speak, the real things that they go through.
Yes.
And all of the real things that life throws at you. But it's actually helps you to see that you find a way. He plants people in different places for you. And for Unique, that plant was her neighbor. The neighbor took Unique in, showed love to her, and she was the one that ended up adopting Unique.
Yes.
And so our community of people raising children in the neighborhood, and it talks about that and how you can change a person's life just being part of that community.
Yes, just being part of the community. What we always say, Greg, it takes a village to raise a child.
Absolutely.
That's
You
a
know,
Unique.
and that's part of the book. You know, it's all about community, how we can build a better community. I know with Families United, with our retreats and our workshops, we talk about having a healthy relationship, because when you have a healthy relationship, a healthy marriage, you have healthy families. So you have more children who are attending school and graduating. Crime is down. Young people are more healthy. That husband and wife live longer. They say if that man kiss his wife before he leave every day, he live 5 years longer. That's the study and the research that they talk about. So when you talk about healthy families, healthy community, you know, help your neighbor, help that senior next door, cut her grass, help that young lady that you mentioned in the book, her neighbor. You know, it's about a community. When you have community helping each other, you have a better neighborhood.
Not only that, it's the first institution that God ordained.
It's
So
marriages, yes.
we want to continuously, cement that to our family listening audience, because marriage was ordained by Christ before sin was even entered into the world. So with that said, if we abide by God's principles and his ways and his 10 commandments, there's all types of gifts and things, and not only gifts but promises that God promises us. So if you want to live a productive life, a clear life, and a life full of protection, you have to declare your life to Christ. Well, Miss April, can you talk about the financial aspects of? Oh, I should have avoided that question. But it's something that our listening audience needs to know about, and maybe you can give us some shortcuts and some things that they need that can help if other young writers suggestions.
I will give my suggestion to all inspiring authors would be vet your team well.
Okay.
That will be your graphic designers. That will be your editors. Editors can cost so much money because there's no guarantee that they've done the job well. So what authors' mistake is, they don't go back and really read sentence by sentence, and they scan through. And you have to vet your team well. It's a lot that goes into one novel, and it's a lot of money that goes into it, especially if you're making mistake after mistake after mistake. So all aspiring authors, count your pennies.
Yes. Okay.
It's not a cheap thing at all.
Well, I mean, from what you're saying is that you want to be very, very well vetted and you want to communicate effectively. But I would think one of the number one things you want to do before you even plan to write a novel, start a budget. Have a budget and a tight budget. Because anytime you're trying to accomplish something from any aspect or any perspective, you have to always be money conscious, because it's ironic that 50% of divorces end because of finances.
Isn't it that Christ said that before you build that home, calculate the expenses?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, we're coming up on a break and we'll be back shortly. This is Greg and Robin with Family Matters. We have a special guest and we will be back. Hello, family. This is Greg and Robin with Family Matters. We're back for our last segment. We have a special guest in the building. Her name is April Floyd, and she's authored 2 books. One is called The Link, and the other is called Unique. And we was just, having a quick conversation on the break. And one of the questions that is really important, what our organization constantly talks about, is the family structure.
Yes.
And which brings me to Miss Floyd. How was your family inspiring to you? How did they support you when you decided that you were going to write the books and you were, going to go ahead and just, be a full-fledged author and go at it?
Well, my mother was my biggest fan, support system. And my father too. I can say that I'm blessed. My entire family supported me all the way. They're still doing it today. My husband's side of the family are a huge support to me, as well as my side of the family. So we have a really good support system. I've even been able to bring my son into the business, so to speak. His name is Terry Scott, and we're producing a movie for Unique also.
Wow.
Wow, that's wonderful.
And
I love to act.
okay.
So if you need someone, I'm available.
Okay, I'm going to remember that. But Terry's also a model as well as an actor, and so he will be playing in the film Unique as well. So,
Well, Terry is here in the studio, and so we would like Terry to say a few words or say hello and what inspired him to be a part of a film or making a film or actor, and give us some inspiration for our young people.
Yes. I've been on this long journey with my mother here. It's I'm always there to support her in whatever she's doing, and whether it's pretty much is she say go, I leap.
Wow.
Just like a boss would do. and she's been my boss all life. So, however we're gonna make it.
So is talented mother, talented son, and we're having a film, something about filmmaking. You want to talk about that?
Oh yes. I've been. I actually star an actor in her new book and movie. I'm super excited about it. I've never been inside of a movie. It's going to be an awesome experience.
Oh, yes. I can't wait. Don't forget about me, Terry, and April. I'm here.
But from what I gather about what Mrs. Floyd and her family is doing, if you notice, there was nothing from an individual standpoint. Everything that this dynamic young lady was talking about, her goals and endeavors, it involved family.
Yes.
And this is what we have to go back to, because, we at Families United, we look at the rates, the divorce rates in the city of St. Louis. They're at 20%. We look at the single parent households, and we look how that affects teenage pregnancy, how that affects crime, how that affects what's going on with our young African American men with the encounters with the police. If we go back and we involve the family in every paradigm of what we're doing, then Christ can come in and change things. We have to get married. We have to live by his principles, not by our principles. Yes, because once we become as a unit, as one, then God can send down the tremendous amount of blessings, such as what he has blessed this young family with. And this is one of the reasons why we had to have them in the studio, to let our family audience know that the family that prays together stays together. Well, Miss April, we are thankful to have you in the studios, and
Yes,
you will be
you.
invited back.
Thank you, April. We're so
We'll be
excited,
invited
and
back.
thank you for coming.
And we're just about at the end of our time. This is Greg and Robin
Robin
with
with Families United.
Families United, and we'll see you next week.
Family matters.
Family Matters.